The text message arrived at 3:22 a.m. London time, jolting me awake in my hotel suite overlooking Hyde Park. I was in the middle of closing a major acquisition deal for Sterling International, my investment firm, when Mom's message lit up my phone screen. "Alex, I know you're busy with work overseas, but I wanted to let you know that I sold the house today. Your sister Rachel's wedding is next month and we needed the money for the venue and reception. The buyers offered $875,000 cash, which will cover everything. I know the house has sentimental value, but you'll understand that Rachel's happiness comes first. Love, Mom." I stared at the message for several long minutes, feeling a familiar mixture of hurt and resignation. The house where I'd grown up, where Dad had taught me to play chess on rainy afternoons, where I'd built my first computer in the garage, sold to pay for my sister's wedding without even consulting me. I typed back a simple response, "Of course, Mom. I understand." What she didn't know was that I had been monitoring the house sale for weeks through my real estate network. When Mom first put it on the market, I'd instructed my property acquisition team to prepare an anonymous cash offer that would beat any competing bids. The buyers, who had offered $875,000, were actually Meridian Holdings, one of my subsidiary companies. I had bought my own childhood home to preserve it, while my mother sold it to pay for a wedding that I could have funded with my lunch money. I reached for my laptop and opened the encrypted communications channel I used for sensitive business matters. A message from David Park, my head of acquisitions, was waiting. "Thompson House acquisition completed as requested. Title transfer process through Meridian Holdings. Anonymous purchase structure maintained. Property now secured under Sterling International portfolio. Awaiting further instructions." I typed back, "Excellent work. Maintain anonymity for now. I'll handle the family situation personally when I return to Seattle." The irony was staggering. I was sitting in a $3,000 per night hotel suite in London, having just closed a $340 million acquisition of a European manufacturing company, while my mother sold our family home to pay for a wedding that would cost less than I spent on business lunches in a typical month. But this was nothing new. For the past 6 years, my family had treated me like the disappointing son who'd wasted his engineering degree on some mysterious overseas job they didn't understand. While my sister Rachel had built a successful marketing career and was marrying a prominent local lawyer, I was viewed as the family wanderer who sent postcards from various countries but never seemed to have a real career. If they only knew that Sterling International managed $4.2 billion in assets across 12 countries, and that their wandering son was currently in London negotiating deals that would impact thousands of jobs and billions in economic activity. My phone rang, interrupting my thoughts. It was Jennifer Walsh, my chief operating officer, calling from our Seattle headquarters. "Alex, I know it's late there, but I wanted to update you on the Thompson House situation." "Tell me." "Purchase completed smoothly. Your mother's real estate agent was impressed by Meridian Holdings' quick decision and cash offer. No complications, no questions about the buyer's identity." "Good. What about the legal paperwork?" "We've structured everything to keep the ownership anonymous for now, but we can reveal Sterling International's involvement whenever you're ready." "I'm not ready yet. My family thinks I'm struggling to find my career direction. Revealing that I own a multi-billion-dollar company might complicate things." "Alex, can I ask why you're keeping your success hidden from your family?" I walked to the window, looking out at the London skyline where several buildings were now lit with Sterling International's logo, celebrating our latest acquisition. Because 6 years ago when I started Sterling International, my family was convinced I was making a terrible mistake. Instead of taking a safe engineering job at Boeing like they wanted, I chose to move overseas and build something they didn't understand. And now they've decided I'm the family failure who can't contribute to important events like weddings, while they sell family assets to pay for celebrations I could fund without thinking twice. That's going to be an interesting conversation when you get home. Jennifer, I want you to prepare something for me. A complete portfolio analysis of Sterling International's holdings, with particular emphasis on our Seattle area investments. I think it's time my family learned a few things about my career choices. After ending the call, I returned to my laptop and reviewed the documentation for the house purchase. The property was now officially owned by Meridian Holdings, with all legal requirements satisfied. My childhood home was safe, preserved exactly as it should be, while my mother believed she'd sold it to strangers. The next morning, I had breakfast with the executives from Harrington Manufacturing, the European company Sterling International had just acquired. The deal would bring 600 jobs to our Seattle headquarters and establish us as a major player in international manufacturing partnerships. Mr. Sterling, said Margaret Harrington, the company's former CEO, this acquisition couldn't have come at a better time. Our family has been looking for the right partner to take Harrington Manufacturing into its next phase of growth. I'm honored that you chose Sterling International, I replied. Family businesses deserve to be preserved and evolved, not simply liquidated for short-term profit. That's exactly why we chose you. Your reputation for preserving company cultures while driving innovation made this an easy decision. As we concluded our meeting, I couldn't help but think about the parallel between Harrington Manufacturing and my own family situation. Both involved family assets, both required careful preservation of what mattered most, and both would benefit from better understanding and communication. That afternoon, I flew back to Seattle, arriving at Seattle-Tacoma Airport at 11 p.m. local time. As my driver navigated through the familiar streets toward my penthouse apartment in downtown Seattle, I made a decision. It was time to tell my family the truth. The next morning, I called David Park into my office at Sterling International's headquarters. David, I want you to prepare a special delivery for my mother. The deed transfer documents for the Thompson house, along with a letter explaining the real identity of the buyer. How much detail do you want to include? Everything. Sterling International's ownership, my role as CEO, and the fact that the house was never actually sold to strangers. And the timing? Send it today. By tomorrow, my family will know that their struggling son and brother just bought their childhood home to preserve it. David nodded and left to prepare the documents. I spent the rest of the day reviewing Sterling International's quarterly reports and preparing for board meetings, but my mind kept drifting to how my family would react to learning the truth. At 6 p.m. my phone rang. It was Rachel, my sister. Alex. Mom said you're back from your work trip. How was London? Productive. How are the wedding preparations going? Amazing. Alex, I have to tell you something incredible. When Mom sold the house, the buyers were so wonderful. They paid full asking price in cash and closed within a week. It was like a miracle. That's great, Rachel. The money means we can have the wedding at the Four Seasons instead of that community center we'd been considering. Alex, it's going to be perfect. I smiled, knowing that the Four Seasons bill would be less than what I'd spent on lunch with the Harrington Manufacturing executives. I'm happy for you, Rachel. You deserve a perfect wedding. Thanks, Alex. And I know this might be awkward, but since you're between jobs right now, we don't expect you to contribute financially to the wedding. Just being there is enough. Between jobs. If only she knew I was between acquisitions, not jobs. I appreciate that, Rachel. I'll definitely be there. The next morning, I was in my office reviewing international market reports when my phone exploded with calls. First Rachel, then my Uncle Tom, then my cousin Sarah. I let them all go to voicemail and continued working. At 10:47 a.m. Mom called. Alex, I need to speak with you immediately. Can you come to the house? What house, Mom? Our house. The house I sold. Alex, I received the strangest letter this morning, and I need you to explain what's happening. I'll be right there. I drove to my childhood neighborhood, parking in the driveway where I'd learned to ride a bike 30 years earlier. The house looked exactly the same, white colonial with blue shutters, the oak tree Dad had planted still growing strong in the front yard. Mom opened the door before I could knock, holding a legal document in one hand and a letter in the other. Alex, what is Sterling International? It's my company, Mom. Your company? The investment firm I've been building for the past 6 years while you thought I was wandering around Europe looking for myself. She stared at me like I'd spoken in a foreign language. Alex, this letter says that Sterling International owns our house. It says you're the CEO of a company that manages $4 billion in investments. 4.2 billion, actually. We closed a major acquisition in London this week. $4.2 billion? Yes, Mom. Alex, this doesn't make sense. You don't have a regular job. You travel constantly. You live in that tiny apartment downtown. I live in a 3,000 square foot penthouse that cost more than this house. I travel constantly because I'm running international business operations. And I don't have a regular job because I employ over 800 people across 12 countries. Mom sank into Dad's old armchair, still clutching the documents. The letter says you bought the house anonymously to preserve it. That's correct. But why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you offer to help with Rachel's wedding expenses? Because 6 years ago when I started Sterling International, you and the rest of the family made it clear that you thought I was making a terrible mistake. Every family gathering became a lecture about getting a real job, settling down and contributing to the family in meaningful ways. But if you have all this money... Mom, I've been trying to contribute to the family for years. Remember when Uncle Tom's restaurant was failing and someone made an anonymous payment to cover his rent for 6 months? Her eyes widened. That was you. Sterling International's Community Investment Division. And when Rachel needed help with her student loans 3 years ago, and that mysterious scholarship appeared to cover the remaining balance. That was you too? I've been helping this family for years, Mom. You just never knew it because every time I tried to explain my work I got lectures about responsibility and stability. She was quiet for several minutes, processing the information. Alex, how much is your company worth? Sterling International's total assets under management are valued at approximately $4.2 billion. My personal stake in the company is worth about $860 million. $860 million? Mom, the house you sold to pay for Rachel's wedding? I bought it for sentimental value, not because I needed another property investment. The purchase price was less than what I spend on office supplies in a typical quarter. And Rachel's wedding expenses? I could pay for Rachel's entire wedding with the money I earn in interest while we're having this conversation. She stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the street where I'd played as a child. Alex, I feel like I don't know you at all. You don't know me because you never asked about my life. Every conversation has been about what I should be doing differently, not about what I was actually accomplishing. But why didn't you insist on telling us? Because I got tired of having to prove myself to people who had already decided I was a failure. It was easier to let you believe whatever you wanted to believe while I focused on building something meaningful. My phone chimed with a text from Jennifer. Board meeting moved to 2 p.m. Japanese investors arriving early for due diligence review. Mom, I have to go. I have a board meeting at Sterling International in an hour. A board meeting? With investors from Japan who are considering a partnership that could expand our operations into Asian markets. She walked me to the door, still looking stunned. Alex, can you forgive us for not understanding? There's nothing to forgive, Mom. But I need you to understand that I'm not the family failure you thought I was. I'm successful, I'm proud of what I've built, and I've been taking care of this family in ways you never realized. What happens now? Now you keep living in the house like you always have. The deed is in Sterling International's name, but this is your home for as long as you want it to be. And Rachel's wedding? Will be perfect. In fact, I'd like to cover any additional expenses she might want. Upgraded flowers, better music, premium catering, whatever would make her day special. Alex, that's incredibly generous. It's what family does, Mom. We take care of each other. That evening, I was back in my penthouse reviewing reports from the Tokyo markets when Rachel called. Alex, Mom told me everything. About your company, about the house, about the anonymous help you've been providing. How do you feel about it? Shocked, grateful, and honestly a little ashamed. Why ashamed? Because we've been treating you like you needed our advice about your career when you've actually been more successful than any of us imagined. Rachel, success isn't about money. You've built a career you love, you're marrying someone who makes you happy, and you've always been kind to me even when others weren't. But Alex, we never even asked about your work. We just assumed. You assumed because I didn't fit your definition of traditional success. But that doesn't make you bad people. It just means we need to communicate better. Can I ask you something? Of course. What's it like running a company that big? Challenging, rewarding, and sometimes lonely. Building something from nothing requires sacrificing a lot of conventional life experiences. Is that why you never brought anyone to family events? No girlfriend, no wife. Partly. It's hard to maintain relationships when you're traveling constantly and working 18-hour days. But also because family events became uncomfortable when everyone was focused on what was wrong with my life instead of what was right with it. That's going to change, Rachel said firmly. Alex, I want to understand your work. I want to know about your life, your successes, your challenges, all of it. I'd like that. And Alex, thank you for everything. The house, the help with school, and now offering to make my wedding perfect. You've been the best brother anyone could ask for, even when we didn't deserve it. 2 weeks later, I sat in the front row at Rachel's wedding, watching her marry the man she loved in a ceremony that was everything she dreamed of. The Four Seasons ballroom was decorated with premium flowers, a 12-piece orchestra provided music, and the catering was flawless. During the reception, Rachel approached me with her new husband, James. Alex, I want James to understand who my brother really is. Can you tell him about Sterling International? What would you like to know, James? Rachel said you run an investment company, but she wasn't clear on the details. I founded Sterling International 6 years ago to focus on sustainable manufacturing and technology investments. We currently manage $4.2 billion in assets and operate in 12 countries. James nearly choked on his champagne. $4.2 billion? We just acquired a European manufacturing company that will create 600 jobs in Seattle. Our goal is to prove that profitable business and positive social impact aren't mutually exclusive. That's incredible. What made you want to start your own company instead of working for an established firm? I wanted to build something that could make a real difference in how business is conducted globally. Traditional investment firms focus primarily on profit maximization. Sterling International focuses on sustainable profit through positive impact. Mom approached our conversation group, looking elegant in her mother-of-the-bride dress. Alex, I've been talking to some of the other parents here tonight. When they ask what my son does for work, I don't know how to explain it. What would you like to say? The truth. That my son is a successful entrepreneur who built a multi-billion-dollar company focused on creating positive change in the world. That's exactly what you should say. Alex, can I ask you something personal? Sure. Are you happy? With all this success, all this responsibility, are you fulfilled? I looked around the ballroom at Rachel dancing with her new husband, at family members who were finally seeing me clearly, at a celebration that represented love and new beginnings. I'm happy, Mom. I love what I've built and I'm proud of the impact we're having. The only thing that was missing was being able to share it with family who understood and appreciated it. We understand now, she said, squeezing my hand. And we're incredibly proud of you. Later that evening, as the reception was winding down, Uncle Tom approached me. Alex, Rachel told me about your company. I need to apologize for all the times I suggested you get a real job. Uncle Tom, you don't need to apologize for caring about my future. But I do need to thank you. For the restaurant, for the anonymous help when I was struggling. I had no idea it was you. Family helps family, Uncle Tom. That's what we do. Well, this family member wants to understand what his nephew has accomplished. Can you tell me more about Sterling International? So I did. For the next hour, I explained our investment philosophy, our international operations, our focus on sustainable business practices, and our plans for continued growth. Uncle Tom listened with fascination and growing pride. Alex, you've built something extraordinary. Not just the financial success but the social impact. Your grandfather would be incredibly proud. That means everything to me, Uncle Tom. As I drove home that night, I reflected on how dramatically family dynamics could change when communication replaced assumption. For 6 years, I'd been the family disappointment who couldn't settle down and contribute meaningfully. In one conversation, I'd become the family success story who'd been quietly taking care of everyone. The next morning, I woke up in my penthouse and immediately called David Park. David, I want to do something special with the Thompson house. What do you have in mind? I want to create a family trust that ensures the house stays in our family permanently. Legal structure that guarantees Mom can live there for the rest of her life, and that future generations will have access to their family history. That's a beautiful idea. What should we call the trust? The Thompson Family Legacy Trust. Because some things are too valuable to risk losing, even when the people you love don't understand their worth. A month later, I hosted my first family dinner in my penthouse. Mom, Rachel, James, Uncle Tom, and several cousins gathered around my dining table, which offered a panoramic view of Seattle's skyline. Alex, Mom said as we finished dinner, this apartment is incredible. How long have you lived here? For years. I bought it when Sterling International's value hit the $1 billion mark. And we thought you were struggling to pay rent, Rachel laughed. You thought that because I drive a modest car and don't wear expensive clothes. I learned early that flashy displays of wealth often indicate insecurity rather than actual success. What's your next goal? James asked. Where do you want to take Sterling International? We're exploring opportunities in renewable energy and sustainable agriculture. The goal is to reach 10 billion in assets under management within 5 years while maintaining our focus on positive impact. 10 billion. Uncle Tom whistled. Alex, you're not just successful, you're reshaping entire industries. That's the plan. Business should be a force for positive change, not just profit extraction. As my family left that evening, each person took time to express their amazement, gratitude, and renewed understanding of who I'd become during those years they thought I was struggling to find my direction. Mom was the last to leave. Alex, I need to say something. I'm listening. For years I worried that you were lost, that you weren't building anything meaningful with your life. I was completely wrong. Mom, you weren't wrong to worry. You were wrong about what I was building. Can you forgive a mother who didn't see her son clearly? There's nothing to forgive. But I hope going forward, you'll ask about my life instead of assuming you know what's happening in it. I promise. And Alex. Yes. The house you saved, it's not just wood and brick. It's the foundation of our family's story. Thank you for preserving it. Some things are too important to lose, Mom. Family history, family connections, family love. They're worth any investment required to protect them. 6 months later, Sterling International announced our largest acquisition ever. A $2.8 billion purchase of renewable energy assets across North America. The deal made international headlines and established us as a major player in the global transition to sustainable energy. The phone call from Mom came the morning after the announcement. Alex, I saw the news about your company. $2.8 billion. The largest deal in Sterling International's history. I'm so proud of you, sweetheart. And grateful that you never gave up on building something meaningful, even when we didn't understand what you were doing. Thanks, Mom. That means everything to me. Alex, there's something I want you to know. What's that? When people ask me about my children, I tell them I have 2 successful kids. Rachel, who built a great marketing career and married a wonderful man. And Alex, who built a multi-billion-dollar company that's helping change the world for the better. And I tell people I have a family who finally understands that success comes in many forms, and that love is more important than any of them. Sometimes the greatest gifts we give are the ones that remain anonymous until the perfect moment for revelation. Sometimes the most important investments we make are in preserving what matters most to the people we love, even when they don't recognize the value of what we're protecting. And sometimes, the best way to prove you're not lost is to show that you were actually building something extraordinary while everyone thought you were just wandering.